A couple of days ago, one of the biggest Warhammer YouTubers on the platform got themselves into hot water for having the coldest take on the internet. Nazis bad. We're going to be looking at Midwinter Mini's video regarding the big problem with historical war games, and also one of the responses to it by Mordy and Glory. Now, before we go into it, I just want to say that this isn't an attack on either creator. And I don't want you guys to do that either. So I just want to clarify, we're talking about the situation. We're going to keep the conversation to this video, and we're not going to take this conversation elsewhere. We just want to have a look at these two videos, and we want to talk about it. We want to talk about the situation. So just to clarify, nobody go off at anyone. That's my job. And we can talk about it in the comments down below. Otherwise, Midwinter Mini's made a video called The Big Problem with Historical Wargaming. And it was talking about why historical games aren't as popular, and it's maybe got something to do with the very real history of war games. And let's just have a look, because there's been other YouTubers that started to respond to it, so I'm gonna respond to it.
It's all fun and games until someone has to be the Nazis.
What an opener! What an opener, guy! Well done. That is what I call a strong hook. Listen, in the YouTube game, we call that a strong hook.
Now there's two of us, two tanks, all good, right? I asked Hattie which one she wanted to paint for the video, and she said, please don't make me paint the Nazis. And that got me.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. And that's why I don't like historicals. I don't like historicals because, one, there's too many people that are like, no, that's not right. You haven't painted like the right shade of grey. But at the same time, there's always just people who do enjoy it a little bit too much. Now, that's not to say that everybody's like that, but there are people who like it too much, you know? There are the weirdos. And by weirdos, I mean very problematic people. So, like, going into this, like, I have seen this video, but I'm, like, very much in agreement with what they've got to say. So that is like that's what I just wanted to say before we like get too far into it. But to be fair though, I used to play Flames of War, and I bought the starter set they did, and I took the Germans, okay? Purely because I thought the tank was cool. And then I played tanks. It was like X-Wing, but World War II. That's the best way I can describe it. Also played the Germans because they were in the starter set, and like my friend Alex wanted like the British. So like, as whilst I'm saying I agree, I've also played Germans in the two historical games I've played. So maybe I'm problematic. But also, at the time I was playing tanks, it's quite funny because at the store I was playing at, we were all like, this game's really good because it's like X-Wing. It's when X-Wing was really popular. We were all like, why don't we go to a tournament somewhere else but paint all the tanks as Space Marine chapters? Because I was like, what if I painted all my tanks as Ultramarines? When painting, playing a faction doesn't mean you align with that faction's political views. Playing Imperium before 40k doesn't make you a fascist either. Yeah, but one of them's made up and one of them isn't. So I think that's a little bit different. Like, to say I like playing Space Marines because they look cool doesn't have any connotation to, like, I played the Germans because I thought the tanks were cool. It's like, oh, why did you think the tanks were cool, you know? The problem is like, there's a difference between the Nazis and the people who are, like, conscripted to fight in the German army. Like, there's a German army and then there's the Nazis. And it's like, it's all problematic because ultimately it was all for the Nazis. But, like, you know, it's like, it is a little bit different to, like, kind of like, it's not all, they are bad. They are fighting with the Nazis, but are they Nazis? Maybe. I don't know. That's the best thing about 40k. Everyone's the Nazis. I mean, true. True.
Me thinking, isn't that really the main problem with historical wargaming? At least games that are set within living memory of a generation or two.
The thing is with, like, historical wargaming, like Napoleonics and stuff like that that Peach is always talking about, there's no living memory of it, whereas, like, people are still alive, or grandparents had parents that were, like, very recent memory of, like, the wars, you know? The thing is like, the populace as a whole worldwide is becoming more aware to, like, not doing shit just because you think it's okay and being wary of your actions around other people. It's called not being a knobhead, but people like to say it's woke. The woke mind virus. The woke mind virus won't let us talk about the Nazis. But it's like, just don't be a dickhead, you know what I mean? At the end of the day, it was a really bad time to be alive. And some people still have memories of it. And it's just like, let's just not get into it.
Now, let me be really, really clear here. We're not accusing anyone of anything, we're both just genuinely curious as to why historical wargaming isn't as popular as the make-believe stuff we all love. In make-believe settings like Warhammer 40k, the baddies, by which I mean everyone, don't really exist. And
I agree. That's the thing. It's like, people can remember this shit. That's the problem. But look, I've just noticed this. Look at the dislikes to likes. Like, the dislikes to likes are almost equal. That is crazy. I've not seen that in a Warhammer video for a long time. The one thing we've got to remember when we're looking at historical war games based on World War II, or World War One, maybe less so World War One, but especially World War II, is that a lot of the game is based on a war that happened less than 100 years ago, and there are people still alive who fought in the war or experienced the atrocities of that war, or had relatives that, you know, close relatives that experienced it. So it is very close to home compared to like a Roman reenactment or Napoleonics or whatever other history games are out there. That has a bigger degree of separation because it was so long ago, and there are no relatives or close relatives alive who experienced that, and that's kind of like a really big difference. And the other argument as well is like, oh well, there's video games that where you can play as Germans, and are they problematic as well? And I don't think anyone's saying anyone is problematic for playing a German in any type of game, whether that's tabletop video game or anything else. It's just the problem is that because of this living memory, because it's so relatively recent, there are people who play Germans because they appreciate the history or just don't care. They don't care about the history. They just like playing the game because it's fun, and that's totally fine. And then there's one person that likes playing Germans because they thought they had really nice uniforms, and that's a bit strange in my opinion, but it's fair enough. But then there is that one person who, you know, I don't know what percentage it is. It could be 1%, 0.1%, 0.001%, or it could even be as high as 10%. I don't know. But there is that one person who likes what the Germans did and idolizes it, and they aren't the problem. Why are we okay with fantasy murder? Because it's not real, you know? I suppose, like, I don't know. It's like, it's not real. And I suppose that's like why it's okay to play video games and like tabletop games of like World War II, because it's not real, but also there is an element of reenactment, right? Like, I'm a Jewish girl, gaming spaces often don't feel safe, and that would make it much worse. Yeah, exactly. Again, the whole thing is, I think the problem is with historicals, it's living memory, you know? People are aware of it. You know, people's relatives, you know, people have heard stories from relatives, you know, that who's actually in it.
In a world where even the good guys are horrible, the baddies are badder than bad. And in the stories and background of the game, they commit horrific atrocities and war crimes, but they're not real. The other side of this coin is historical war games like Bolt Action. Basically, someone has to play as the Nazis, or at least a Nazi allied army.
Yeah, I can see why people have been pissed off with this video. Like, I totally agree. Like, you know, Space Marines, Warhammer Fantasy, all made up, okay? So we have that degree of separation. There's a big degree of separation because we don't have super soldiers in space. Okay, I don't know if anyone realised. I know you might be on Twitter all day, you might have Twitter Blue, but we don't have super soldiers in space, okay? Not yet, maybe one day. But the problem is with World War II, as a historical game, it is more close to home, and I think that's the problem. But I think the problem is like, yeah, it's that people sometimes do have that separation because they aren't playing the Nazis; they're playing the German army, which is different than playing the Nazis and idolizing the Nazis. Probably is that what people's problem is? I'm asking you. But I think I can understand his opinion. It's like, if you are playing these games, there's a less of a degree of separation. You don't want to play the baddies because the baddies were very real. Some people just enjoy the baddies. Yeah, but again, I think what Guy in that is trying to say is like, they don't want... What about the people who enjoy the baddies too much? You know? It's also saying you have to play as them. You really don't. No, of course. I mean, yeah, like that's phrased kind of badly. You don't have to play as the Nazis. You don't have to play as the baddies. You know? But like, you can play against them, and you might not want to play against them, or someone does want to play them, but then they might feel a bit weird about it. I think that's what they're trying to say, but they've not like elaborated their point very well. Not offended personally, I just don't see the appeal due to family history. I think people can go about if they want to, though. Yeah, exactly. That's the thing. I don't think Guy has gone, you know what? We need to like burn all the historical games. Just get rid of them all. You know, just bin them off. Get rid, you know? But he's just talking about, like, things that people might be thinking, but again, maybe went too hard. Everyone's projecting stuff onto a guy that he didn't say. He didn't call everyone who plays German Nazis. He wondered if that's why games aren't more popular. I agree. Yeah, that's the thing. I think this video is a good video. It raises a good conversation about why. And, like, I don't disagree with any of his points, you know? So, fair play to him. I mean, it's a hard video to put out. You do realise that Axis countries are also playable factions in World of Warships. Interesting. So
I play World of Warships, and given you're watching a video about real-world weapons of war, it seems a pretty good fit for the video, right?
But that's the thing. If Guy was making a video saying, no, don't play historicals, then advertise World of Warships, pretty dodge. Not the best idea, Guy. But he didn't say that. It's him having a conversation about it. Why aren't they more popular? Also, you know, I am kind of into it myself. You know, in a sense. Not the tabletop. Maybe I'm going to paint some bolt action. But I do like World of Warships. Maybe I'm being too generous, but I feel like that's the take. It's guys saying, people may not want to play as the Germans in this game. Pretty dodge. You know, bit weird, but, you know, some people might find it okay. I like playing video games because they're not real, but also it's fine because it's a video game. It's okay, just like bolt action. At no point does it feel like guys saying don't play bolt action. I don't think so either. I think it's just like a conversation starter. It's just a really hard conversation to have because it always feels like it shouldn't be a hot take, but it suddenly becomes one. You know, I don't want to play as the bad guys because they were real. You know, that's not really a hot take. I mean, I'm just one Jewish person, but I don't mind people playing German historical armies for sure. I just care that people manage these spaces I play and actively think about keeping fascists out. And I think that's the problem. The thing is when you have anything like this, it's almost like having an open door to that problem, but not because people want it to be open. It's just because you are treading the line so closely. You're talking about it. You're actively playing with them. You're actively painting them. Now, you probably just paint them because of the cool models, or you like the history, or you like the look of the tanks, and that's totally fine, and you're not the problem. The problem is that 1%, 0.1% of problematic people, and that's what I think is that's the problem with Wargames, is it's so close to that you can't escape it. But we want to escape it. We want to say, we shouldn't have to say, but fuck fascism, okay? Okay, we all agree with that. If you don't agree with that, sort yourself out. But the problem is when you're like kind of treading on that line because people idolize it, they might also want to paint some Germans, but paint some Germans too far to where they are just straight up glorifying Nazis and glorifying fascism. And that's what we don't want. And I think the problem is nobody's saying every historical wargamer is a Nazi, or everyone who plays German army is a Nazi. Nobody's saying that. But what we are saying, or at least guys saying, and what I think, my personal opinion, is that there are people like that, and it feels closer to home when we are playing with the Germans than it is when we are playing space fascism, which is all made up, which also has a very real problem with fascism, has a very real problem with people being fucking weird, and that's a problem, but I think it can feel closer to home. There is less of a degree of separation. My new favourite phrase for today's stream. Am I wrong? Am I in the wrong? Am I saying the wrong thing? Because I'm open to conversation, you know? What we've learned is if we stop bell ends from playing any war games, especially in historicals, we don't have to worry that people will think we are fascists. So I suggest we stop bell ends. Steve, based take. Okay? If we get all the weirdos out, people aren't going to think you're a weirdo because there's no weirdos left. And by weirdo, I mean fucking psychopath. Anyway, so that was Midwinter Minis video. Based video. Framed a bit badly. You know, I think that's what we can take. We can go, kind of, good point. Good point. Very good thought piece. Framed kind of badly. You did kind of say all the German armies are Nazis when people don't view it like that, and I think that's why it's okay. Okay, Morning Glory responded anyway. Big problem with Midwinter Minis. Strong title. I love Morning Glory, but that thumbnail's a little unrepresentative of the situation. Yeah, it is, because he's literally got "You are a Nazi" in the thumbnail. Which is like, ooh, that's not what he said. That's not what he said. That's not what he said, though.
Unfortunately, Rather than focusing on painting the models, the majority of the video essentially focused on why you should feel bad for playing historical war games.
I mean, it isn't. It isn't. That's not what the video is saying. It's saying there's a bit of a Nazi problem in wargaming, and they're very close to home in historicals.
This is just asking the question why historical war games aren't as popular, but when you start your video with this...
It's all fun and games until someone has to be the Nazis.
Not exactly a good start.
Disagree. Disagree. Great start to the video. It's called a hook, Morning Glory. You have not hooked me because it's taking you 2 minutes to get to this point.
My issue is purely with this one video, all right? So put the pitchforks away. But with all of that said...
Put the pitchforks away. Thumbnail. Put the pitchforks away, guys. Okay? Morning, mate. You're better than this. Come on now. You can sort this out.
It felt like they were making you feel bad for enjoying historical or World War II games. They had this whole part where they were like, we wonder why historical games are less popular. Maybe it's to do with the fact that you can play as the Nazis. Oh, please don't make me play as the Nazis. And there's a whole bit where they were like, well, you know, if someone wanted to play as one of those factions, what does that really say about them? I mean, we're not trying to tar everyone with the same brush, but maybe some people would take it too far. And it just felt really...
I mean, yeah, that is what he said, and that's fine.
And the other thing you should have in mind is respect. You're coming into a new place. You don't necessarily know everything about that place. There is, in my mind, very little difference between virtually online entering a new community or doing it in person. And if you...
Am I high? Is this guy like... If there's racists in your hobby, your new hobby, you better be nice to them. Is he calling Guy a hobby tourist? I think so. Is he saying, you know what, if there's a problematic person in your community when you just join, maybe just suck it up. Liberal, just suck it up. That's fine. That's not what he's saying. He's saying that Midwinter Mini is new into bolt action and that's going in, insinuating anyone playing the Nazi source is not the play. But that's also not what he said. You know? That's not what he said. He had a hook. The hook led to that. But the hook of a video is kind of like, hello, I want your attention, please. The whole video based around Guy's hook. I wish I had this sort of skill where I could make a whole video about 2 seconds of a video. The hook was a thesis. Exactly. It's a title of a thing, you know? That's 2 seconds.
Lambaste me. Don't be afraid to go hard, my
Hi,
dear.
Mordian.
It's all fun and I appreciate the feedback and the content. Smile.
No problem. Thanks for the 5, mate. Really appreciate it. Thanks for watching. I'm just going to keep roasting you now. I hope you don't mind. I hope you're ready.
The overwhelming message that was being sent to me as the viewer was historical war games are bad and you should feel bad. Do you know what it reminded me of?
But that's not really what he was saying. Again, maybe I'm giving... I don't think I was, but that's what the hook said. But I don't think the rest of the video said that. The rest of the video was kind of saying there is that person who likes it too much, and it's very obvious in historicals. But that's the problem with historicals. I think that's the point Gary was making. There's no degree of separation compared to fantasy games. I don't think he's saying everyone's a Nazi.
But it's kind of annoying to see that kind of video game stupid argument starting to filter into tabletop games. Oh, if you play a Nazi in a tabletop game, it means you want to be a Nazi in real life. If you kill people in a tabletop game, it's going to make you violent in real life.
It's just not the same, you know? It's just not quite the same. Like, yeah, he kind of alluded to it, but he was also just saying, like, there are those people who really like it. So because there are people who really like it, people can then start to think that you're one of those people who really like it. And again, that's very different, you know? And I think that's okay to have that conversation. But I think to say that all he was saying was everyone was a Nazi, I don't think so.
The video felt like it was being deliberately controversial. Like...
Mordian, mate. Come on now. Come on now. Pot, kettle, black. Mate. Pot, kettle, black. That's what we call that. Don't throw stones when you live in a glass house, you know? We're all controversial. That's the point. But this video, if Guy's video is controversial, this is very, very controversial.
When you're making a video like this, and you're talking about a topic which is probably kind of sensitive, and you're making this insinuation of play Nazi, does that mean you want to be a Nazi? It comes across as a little dishonest and a lot hypocritical if in the middle of your video you have an advert talking about World of Warships, where you can play as the Axis or you can play as the Allies.
I do kind of agree. I do think it's probably a poor choice of advert. I do kind of agree with that. I think the way Guy framed the video was fine. I think the way he framed the advert in that wasn't fine. You know, because he was kind of saying this might be problematic if you like playing the Nazis or the Germans. You might be a bit problematic because people who do play Germans sometimes are pretty bad people. That's okay. No, it's not okay. It's okay to say. Sorry, I shouldn't say. No, we don't like the Nazis. Okay, just to clarify. But yeah, he framed it as like, look, historicals might be like, they might be a type of escapism where you don't look at the real world and you just see it as a fantasy setting like I do in World of Warships. That'd have been a great way to phrase that and frame it in, you know? Then you can still have the same advert, you can still have the same topic, but I think in that instance, you need to frame it very delicately, and I maybe don't think he did. But Midwinter did respond. With respect, I'm not sure if you actually watched my video. We basically set out some reasons why some people might not feel comfortable with playing historical war games, given their cultural context, and wondered if that might explain the popularity difference between sci-fi/fantasy and historicals. Then I asked what people thought. Misquoting me on the thumbnail is low. Yeah, I agree. The thumbnail's pretty bad. I want to love content you do. Been following for years. I tune in nearly every episode. I promise you I watched the whole video and I'll say this is my impression from it. But I guess that's the thing about content. Everyone sees things differently and it's going to have different takeaways. I appreciate you taking the time to leave a comment. And whilst maybe not see eye to eye on this topic, I respect you for clarifying and defending your position. In regards to the thumbnail, I meant to the joke, but I understand I may have missed the mark and I apologise. Pressure because I've altered it as soon as I can. Yeah, that's fair. That's totally fair. I mean, I think this thumbnail is pretty bad. Now, Mordy says he's updated it. You might be a Nazi. Okay, so you've changed it from you're a Nazi to but you might be a Nazi. I mean, if he said that the thumbnail's misquoted, I probably would have changed it a little bit more than that, but that's just me. But yeah, they're the two videos. Now, I think Midwinter Minis framed his video kind of poorly, which made people get a little bit angry. And I think Mordy and Glory, like, not to discredit his opinion, I did watch both videos all the way through. I took the first point and just kind of ran with it. Since this, obviously, Mordy and Glory has changed the thumbnail. He's taken the quote off completely, which is totally fair play to him. And on one of his live streams recently, he also spoke about his recent video.
I know that my video has blown up a little bit. I actually, hand on heart, did not expect that to happen. I absolutely wasn't, taking him on in a personal way or anything like that. That video has the more I've rewatched my own content, the more I watch it, the more like holes I see in my own video. But that was just my literally first impressions. I saw the video. I watched this video 2 or 3 times to make sure that I was like, just watching it, like absorbing the information. And then I just did my first impressions. I'm sure there's loads of mistakes in my video, but that is all it is. It is literally just like my opinion, man. But I understand that it could be wrong. But, it wasn't me taking him on. It was just me. If I was to do that video again, my biggest issue is it might put people off historicals. My biggest issue was it was kind of a negative way to start off your relationship with bot action.
So I think overall, Midwinter Minis had a good point, framed it kind of poorly, had a maybe didn't plug the sponsor the most graceful way either. But I don't think the backlash that Guy is receiving about his video is proportionate to the problem at hand. It's like Guy's trying to say that there are real obstacles of people entering war games, and potentially, especially historical war games such as World War II games. Whereas people who are crying out about the video aren't really focusing on that problem he's talking about. They're focusing on something that he didn't really say. And I think Mordian kind of relied on a point too heavily. But I think overall it's good to have these sorts of conversations. I do think it's okay to have these conversations as adults. Yeah, it's on the internet. It's not the best place to have these conversations either. I think there are lots of good points to be made, and I think there's a lot of good opinions out there. And I also think there's some that are just wrong as well. And and that's okay. That's called having a balanced take, you know. But I'd love to hear your thoughts, and let's try and keep it civil as possible. If you don't like what I think, then do let me know why. And if I have offended you throughout this video with anything that I said, then I do apologise. Unless you are literally a Nazi, then I do hope I offended you, because I do not stand for the ideologies you stand, and I do not want to know you. But anyway, that's it. That's all about this topic. Love to hear your thoughts down in the comments, and hopefully I'll chat to you soon. Bye!